Welcome to the Set Apart podcast, where personal development meets biblical truth. I'm your host, Allison, life and leadership coach, teacher, lifelong learner, and a woman after God's heart. This is a space for real conversations about faith, growth, discipline, the ups and downs of life, and how God meets us in all of it. So stick around, because I believe that God called you here for a reason. Hey guys, welcome back to the Set Apart podcast. Today I'm going to be talking to you about something that I am so incredibly passionate about. So forgive me ahead of time if I get a little bit loud or if I get overly excited, because this is something that I could teach on and preach on forever because I believe it so deeply. So deeply. And that is this. God lets nothing go to waste. If you are a human being here on planet Earth, I can guarantee that you've been through something difficult. And some of us have faced different degrees of pain. Some of us have faced deeper pain. Some of us have dealt with pain for longer. But regardless, we've all been through something and we all have our story. And it is my firm belief that all of us have not only the power to overcome what we've been through, but we have the power to use what we've been through for something huge, something so big that it actually can define our purpose. And this is not me diminishing your pain in any way, but this is me reminding you that there is a purpose in all of it if you choose, and that is the biggest part here, choose. If you choose to make something of it. It's not that God gives us pain for no reason, but it is us who sometimes stay in victimhood and let the pain go to waste. Because people build lives around their pain one way or another. Some people spend their time dwelling on what happened to them and they make an entire life out of it, while others spend their time using what happened to build something incredible. And I want to share with you a story in my life that is so full circle that it honestly proves this truth to me every single day. So I think back to the hardest season of my life, and that season was around junior high time for me. During that time, I felt like my world was falling apart on such a big level. My stepdad at the time was the only real father figure that I'd ever had, and he left our family. My grandma, who was my favorite person on this earth, was dying from kidney failure. Me and my family were moving houses constantly because of my mom's divorce from my stepdad at the time. And on top of all of that, my mom entered a really abusive relationship that spanned about 9 years. And it was utter chaos. And then on top of all that, I'm in junior high, which is already an awkward time in one's life. So just so much was going on. My dad also was in the midst of a full-on drug addiction. And there were nights that I would just stay in my room. There were weeks that I would stay in my room, actually. And that was the only place I felt safe. And even there, I didn't feel safe. And it even got to a point where I felt so hopeless that I questioned if my life was even worth living. I really could not see a future that looked different from the circumstances and the pain that I was in. And I was at a full rock bottom. But looking back, I can so clearly see now that God was with me the whole time, and all glory to Him because He didn't leave me there. He used that pain and He shaped me through it. Even when I couldn't see Him in my life, He was forming something in me that I would one day use to help others. So fast forward to my 20s, I began this incredible journey of healing. I got into leadership work, I got into coaching, I got into personal growth, and that's when my faith really came alive. And slowly I started realizing that everything I'd been through was actually equipping me to help other people heal too. And I really started realizing that I became this very strong and wise young woman because of that pain. And then, fast forward even more, came the full circle moment, right? So in 2023, I unexpectedly became a junior high teacher. I was coaching somebody, and the person that I was coaching was in the space of working with junior high students. And she looked at me and said, "You would be so good with the middle schoolers." And I thought, okay, I'll give it a try. I didn't have any training to become a teacher. I didn't have my credential to become a teacher. It was just somebody who I was working with that thought you would be really good with the kids. So I jumped in to a career with teaching. But here's the really crazy part. My first group of students that I ever taught in 2023, I realized that they were born the same year that I was questioning whether my life was worth living. When I was their age and I wasn't sure if I wanted to live anymore, they were being born. You can't make that up. That is all God. And I'm not a regular general education teacher that teaches math, science, history, or any of that. I'm able to teach them career and life skills that motivate them to make something of their life. So now every day I get to stand in a classroom with students who remind me of my younger self, kids who are trying to find their place in a world that feels heavy. And I get to be the person that I needed at their age. And when I hear my students tell me things like, "I feel safe here," or "You make me feel like I can actually do something with my life," I think, wow, God really, really does use everything. And that's what it looks like when God takes what the enemy meant for evil and he turns it for good. But that would have only happened if I said yes and if I did the work. I could have stayed in victimhood like a lot of people do. But I decided that I'm worth more. I decided to align myself with what God says about me. And what God says about me is that I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Listen, you don't have to be extraordinary to be used by God. I am just a young woman who came from a family that seriously struggled, a childhood full of instability, a teenage season where I didn't even know if I wanted to live anymore. I wasn't chosen by God because I have some special gifts. I honestly don't. I was chosen because God is faithful. And I decided to say yes. He took everything that I thought disqualified me, like my pain, my past, the patterns that were ingrained in me, and he turned it into something that I can use for my purpose to serve God's kingdom. That's what he does. He doesn't waste anything. Back to what I was saying in the beginning. We all have pain. But what separates people who stay stuck from people who grow is choice. You can either stay in victimhood and keep replaying what happened, keep blaming others, keep wishing it were different, or you can decide, I'm not going to let this go to waste. I'm going to do something with it. Being a victim, it's going to get you nowhere. It will only keep you small and it will rob the world of the gift that you were meant to give. Imagine if I played small. Imagine all the students that I'm able to impact on a daily basis who wouldn't get the gift of me. God already promised that he will use everything for your good, but you have to choose to participate in that process. You have to choose to be refined. You have to choose to rise to the occasion. I'm going to bring this back up to the surface a little bit. I know I'm getting deep, okay? Even with something as simple as running, I've learned this truth firsthand. If you have followed my running journey at all, you'll know that running my half marathon was so meaningful for me, and I'm super excited for my full marathon coming up. But here's the thing. If running came easy to me, it wouldn't have meant nearly as much. If I didn't have a tumultuous history with running, it would just be another race. But it's the pain that gives it purpose. It's the struggle that makes the finish line powerful. Every mile that hurts, every moment that I want to quit, that's where growth happens. That's where grit is built. That's where character is formed. And it's the same in life. Without pain, there's no perseverance. Without challenge, there's no calling. And without struggle, there's no story. I told you I'd yell, okay? This really gets me excited. So maybe right now, you're walking through something that doesn't make sense. And maybe you're wondering why God would allow it or how any good could come from it. Maybe you reflect on what you've been through and you're asking God, how could you? But I want to remind you that you have a choice. You can let that pain define you, or you can let it refine you. You can dwell on it, or you can do something with it. On some level, I let my pain define me, but in a way that empowers me because it's my platform that I use, it's my testimony that I stand on to become more powerful, not for me, not for my glory, but so I can help others for God's glory. And if you don't know where to start, here's what I would encourage you to reflect on. What have you lived through that has shaped you? What have you overcome that might help somebody else someday? And what story do you keep coming back to that still stirs something in your spirit? Because that's often where purpose begins, right in the middle of what you thought would break you. Revelation 12:11 says, "They triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony." Your story is your testimony, and your testimony is your weapon. And I am telling you right now that the world needs your voice, not once it's perfect, but right now while it's in progress, because your life is now and somebody needs you now. So I urge you, do not let your pain go to waste. Let God use it. You are not too late. You are not too broken. You are right on time. This is about your legacy. This is about glory to God. There is somebody in the world who needs you. Not me, not the person next to you. They need you. When you've overcome something, you have authority over that thing. And I urge you to use that authority. And remember, you don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to keep showing up and keep letting your story speak. You never know who's watching and who you can inspire through your comeback. So here's my challenge for you this week. Take a moment and reflect and ask God, how can I turn my pain into purpose? What do you want to do through what I've been through? How do you want to use me for your glory? And who are you calling me to become on the other side of this? That's where your legacy begins. It's not when your life is perfect, but it's when you decide to let your story serve His plan. Thanks for tuning in to the Set Apart podcast. If this episode spoke to you, share it with a friend or post it to your story. You never know who might need it. Remember, being set apart isn't about being perfect. It's about being purposeful. I'll catch you in the next one.